Right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Unit X Inspira series, our last talk of the series. And during the Unit X Inspira series, we aim to explore some of the big questions that face the future of design, but also think about how we link critically and creatively as creative change makers and how we have impact perhaps on the world. This year we're joining forces with Design Factory and our research colleagues to host inspiring talks and conversations that inform the work that we do, but also how we design in a multitude of contexts. And this year we're turning the spotlight locally to be inspired by those practices in the surrounding city and to also be inspired by that culture and creative community. And in talking about creative community, I'm going to hand you over to Gemma, who's going to talk about Design Factory.
You don't normally get applause for Brixton. Hi everyone, I'm Gemma Potter. I am a research associate here in the design department. Hello to all those who I saw today in Stockport. Really great to see you again here. Manchester Design Factory is a new innovation hub here at Manchester School of Art and a vehicle for our community of practitioners, our researchers and students, which is you guys. And it's for students, for all of us, our community of practitioners, to design locally based sustainable development with the potential to reach beyond our city. We take a participatory approach to design innovation that is social and inclusive. And our first project that we are working on is an Arts Council Capital Development funded project called Stockport Creative Campus. And through this activity, the Design Factory will be able to apply design thinking through the theme of repurpose, working with creative businesses and social enterprises to actively develop sustainable ways of collectively thriving. And really excited to hear the talks tonight. And I will hand over to Shelley.
Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, thank you for coming back after the fire alarm, and thank you for evacuating the building in a very sensible manner. My name is Shelley McNulty. I am the head of department for design. I don't often get to do these things, so it's really lovely to be invited. Thank you, Fabrizio, for asking me to do this. But this is a kind of a personal love of mine, this kind of subject matter this evening, because I'm an interior designer, I'm a trained interior designer. I spent a lot of time in practice in design studios. I used to run the interior design course, and now I get to run the department. So it's a real thrill for me to be here this evening and speaking with our guests. I want to introduce our first guest, Liam McGroherty, who's one of my students, one of my grads. And I've just said, Liam, when did you graduate? And he said, 10 years ago. I was like, oh my God, I feel terribly old. But it's a real thrill to welcome Liam and to celebrate in his success, since he's graduated from us. So I have to read a little bit of blurb, Liam, and then I'm going to hand over to you. So Liam runs a design studio called Youth with his colleague and fellow graduate, Ollie Collinge. And Youth is a design studio based in Manchester here. Their aim is to continually challenge both the creative industry and ourselves. They believe the role of design is greater than simply making spaces look good. They create outcomes that find the balance between life and style, culture and commerce. Their approach is collaborative and output honest, raw and real, yet highly refined and considered, driven by a team of unconventional thinkers whose youthful grit and conceptual rigour is met with a commitment to design detail and deliver it. So, this evening, welcome, Liam. Over to you.
Hello. Thanks for that, Shelley. Fabrizio and Shelley were my tutors many years ago, and really good ones. Well, I like to think so anyway. Obviously, done something right. So myself and Ollie both studied on the interiors course, and pretty much started Youth in the think tanks on the floor below. So there's a lot of nice moments in the think tanks that we still refer back to now. So it's really nice to be back, and hopefully can inspire a little bit of what can be done, I guess, after university. So this is me and Ollie, Phil and Grant. We don't take a great picture, so this was the best one that we could muster. We're based in the Northern Quarter. We've moved studio about 20 times in our 8 year period, but we're in the Northern Quarter now, so if you do pass, you're more than welcome to say hi. But yeah, we'll have to arrange a coffee sometime. But yeah, so we as kind of Shelley just said there, the kind of studio approach is that we kind of put ourselves between culture and lifestyle, and that's a lot to do with us personally. When we left university, we went and worked for design practices for a couple of years, designing stuff that wasn't really relevant to us. And then we took the bold decision after a bit of fortune with a couple of projects to go and start on our own and design projects that we wanted to work on and with and for. And that's the kind of culture and lifestyle thing. So designing spaces that we'd want to either live in, we'd either want to work in, we'd want to hang out in, or we'd want to buy clothes from. So that's the real kind of driver with every project, is quite a selfish one, is we want to make spaces that we would want to be in, and not kind of anything too kind of corporate or dry. Meaningful spaces, meaningful experiences, so we, without being too kind of like poetic or overthought about it, essentially we just want to create spaces that you walk into and you pick up on the vibe, you pick up on the feeling of the space. I think feeling's a big word. So you want to kind of go into that space and feel what it's about and what the purpose of the space is. And I think that comes through a lot of kind of experiences of experiencing different kind of spaces and experiencing different environments. I think the key thing is to kind of like go, and when you find a space that you like, ask yourself why you like it, and that kind of really forms youth. We always design spaces that kind of we refer back to a trip to Antwerp, and we say we went to this place and that really kind of resonated with us, and why did it resonate and how would it be relevant for this project. So our kind of philosophy, as again mentioned in the opening kind of statement with Shelley, was this kind of refined rawness. So that again is a studio, and I think it's something we're still working on and still developing, and will constantly continue to develop, is designing spaces that are not these kind of clean, sterile kind of everything perfect within the space. We like a little bit of kind of rough and ready imperfections, and kind of creating the nice kind of juxtaposition between where you have something that's really beautifully detailed and you know, working with an artisan who really understands his craft to create something that's beautiful, but then also kind of like putting that against or up to something that really contradicts that, and kind of creating this tension. I think that's something that we like to do, is kind of ruffle feathers a little bit with our spaces and with our brand, is really kind of create spaces that make people notice them. So you have to do that by ruffling feathers. So it's quite like when we started the company, we were only 2 years out of university, so to go and start our own company was quite a bold statement. But the reason we did that was because we had a statement to make and we had a vision of what we wanted to do. And to do that, like I say, there was like a kind of underpinning kind of youthful grit that we wanted to get out there. And I think that comes through in the refined rawness aesthetic that we, as a studio, kind of push. Another thing, we are a small studio, so we're a team of 4. That fluctuates. We've had, you know, we kind of gain people go, and so on and so forth. But I think what's always key to when people work for us, or when we as a studio design a project, is that everyone in the studio understands the goal of the project, what we're trying to achieve with the project, and every little detail. Like, there's not a high concept that we just produce of a SketchUp model or some nice elevations and hand that over to a contractor. Like, we know every single detail. We know how each tiles go together, how the piece of joinery does. We go to infinite detail to make sure that we know the project, and also the people that we're working with, whether that's the client or the contractor building it, that they understand exactly what we are looking to achieve. Because I think there's far too much spaces you'll go in on a daily basis, and contractors had a bit too much free reign. And so when we go to these spaces and we admire, tile junctions on floors, or how, two bits of wood are joined together, those are the details that designer has lost sleep over and has studied over. And I think that's a key thing. The overall vision picture can be great, but those details are the mark of a next level project. And I think that's something that we as a studio are very hands-on and very involved with. There's some design studios that are a little bit more hands-off, and that's completely cool. But us as a studio and what we want to achieve and where we see ourselves going, that's what we need to do to get there. So I'm going to flick through. I think I picked like 3 projects that are my personal favourite in the studio. Ollie might, or whoever in, Phoebe and that might disagree with this, but they're my favourite projects that we've achieved today. I've not included, we've got large scale projects of big residential buildings, and I think in Manchester alone, I think we've kind of gotten coming up to 1,000 apartments that we've designed, and residential areas, campus along the road being one of our biggest ones. And then we're working on another one just on the other side of the city. And these residential projects are great, and we coincided youth's arrival and start in Manchester with the kind of property boom in Manchester, which wasn't intentional, it just happened that way, and we went from designing no apartments to a lot of apartments in Manchester. But I don't want to kind of show you those ones because they're a bit boring. Well, they're not, but these ones are better. So first of all is Curb, which you might know in the northern, Ancoats, near Edinburgh Castle. The clients on this project were the guys who own All at Hatch, and they just came and knocked on our studio one day and said, we want to open an organic wine bar. And those are the nicer kind of projects that you get where someone comes to you because they want you to design it for that specific reason. The space is only 70 square meters, so it was very, very tight and small, and very rectangular, and obviously it's a good excuse to go and check it out and go and have a glass of wine. But the space, we didn't want to basically attack the space with walls lined with bottles of wine. So what we did, we created a large curved wall that kind of creates a nice viewing point as you kind of walk past the space. The wines reveal themselves. But I think the most important thing about this was wine can be very pretentious, and that's something that we really wanted to kind of avoid with this. So in terms of like the concept for the space was all about getting around and kind of avoiding that walking up to a till point and asking someone, what kind of wine do I like? So the spaces, we kind of always say that you orbit around the space because there's the central counter that, someone will be kind of stood around hosting, and you can kind of go in there and you circulate around, and it's a very informal, very welcoming and a nice way to kind of view the bottles of wine because they're all graphically beautiful. So it's kind of like a wall of art as much as a wall of wine. But it's a very tight space, and the curves and everything, I think, we really made this space work, and for me was a project we're very proud of. And speaking of getting tables through doors, which I was telling Fabrizio about, the centre table here was cast in Jesmonite, and was coming from somewhere else in England, and the night before kind of realised that it was coming as a full table and how we were going to get it in there. So I spent most of the night 3D modelling this table and making sure it fitted through the door. So those are the perks of sleepless nights as a designer. Deansgate store, which is in the Deansgate Towers. This is General Store, which is a really cool concept of a corner shop. And what we kind of went to do with this, because it was in the Deansgate Towers, which is quite, high-end, your footballers and so on. In there, we wanted to make it feel like a high-end corner shop. So the idea was what if we made the experience of going and buying a tin of beans the same as going and buying a pair of Prada trainers, that kind of high-end fashion. So with this, we went to town on it basically, and the owner of the store really kind of backed us on it. So it's kind of got this cool ticker tape that runs through the space, and this, to be fair, this video was probably thought of before we even designed the space. This was what we really wanted to kind of do with it. So essentially it's a corner shop with a lot of nice products in there, but it also feels super high end and not like you nip into your local co-op. So yeah. This is Boohoo, even though the title there is wrong. This is a Boohoo project that we did down on Great Portland Street. And this is the table on the top there that a gentleman called Phil Proctor did for us. And again, we didn't think about how that was going to get into the space. So there's a lesson to be learned. And then eventually we managed to get it in there. It was very tight. But again, all of these projects are like infinite. Hopefully you can see by the images and the style of them. There's a lot of detail we put into everything, even the mirror table here that's bespokely designed. So we kind of really go to town on making sure that we deliver the kind of concept that we first present to a client. This one's close to home. This was for a friend of mine up North Manchester, and it's an Italian restaurant, but with this, I'd just come from a holiday in Puglia and was very inspired. So there's a lot of natural materials in terms of marbles and stones. And again, the stone sink you see there is a stone that we commissioned a stonemason to make for it. And this kind of represents that refined rawness kind of best, I think, out of all of our projects, because there's a kind of real relationship between the raw materials of the stone, the marble. We've got a kind of, well, we have a stone floor and raw timber floor, and then kind of putting that against like the really heavy textured linen curtains and the lighting in there, so it's very kind of moody and atmospheric. But it's a project that we get a lot of clients coming to us for this kind of style, and it kind of differs from the other stuff which is more retail. It's funny how it works, because that's all retail and then this is hospitality, and we kind of go through waves of each one. So I wanted to just show you our clients that we've worked with, because on the left-hand side are all really cool brands that we started the studio to work with, you know, dreaming to work with brands like that. And then on the right-hand side are the more kind of corporate companies who again, are amazing clients, and we get to achieve some really cool things with them. But there's a real balance in the studio of doing these kind of more passion projects and then balancing that with the more kind of corporate. And I think as a designer, there's that understanding. You've got to be able to kind of balance the kind of heads down, get the work done with the more kind of conceptual fun stuff. And we try and always keep a nice mix of that in the studio. I might be jumping the gun here a little bit, Shelley, because I hope these aren't going to take anything from you. But I just wanted to stress some things that I think, having done this course and left here, that I think are key pointers that I would have wanted to tell myself at the time. And that would be that if you are going into design, any kind of design, but obviously with interior design, it has to be your passion. You have to think about it when you leave this building, when you're on the weekends, and I know everyone will kind of want, you know, I need some time off, but it shouldn't be a case that, like, good ideas tend to come when you're not really thinking about it, but you're kind of in tune with it. So it's kind of like training, I think, train the eye. So make sure, like, open your eye to kind of start, like, to spot things that take your interest and, like, magpie it all. I think that's the biggest thing, and I think even from my own perspective, I'm still developing that eye to be able, and I think photography kind of helps with that, but just training that eye to be able to see things like really nice junctions of stuff or moments of beauty, and I don't mean that in kind of like a sunset way. Then seize the opportunity when you work at a studio. So, like, again, respect the fact that someone's investing that time in having you there and putting that time into developing you. So take that opportunity, work really hard at it, and don't take it for granted, because as much as you put back into it, they'll give you that double back. So, like, make sure you're kind of reciprocating that. And then another big thing is generating ideas. Like, don't develop one idea and then sit on it and kind of go, this is my concept, I'm going to stick with this. I'd say like change your environment. Like there's a little test that we kind of do where we'll give yourself 10 minutes and come up with a new idea, like every 10 minutes, a concept or a kind of sketch or a layout. Just keep pushing it, because often the first idea isn't actually the best one. Yeah, and that's it.
Great. We'll do one presentation after the other, and then we'll have time for questions afterwards. So,
Okay, thank you so much, Liam. Our next speaker is Elise Zoet Mulder, also a graduate of our MA here. I think there's probably quite a few MA students in the crowd this evening. So I didn't teach you specifically, Elise, I don't think, but we've definitely crossed paths. And I'm always so grateful that you come back to share your knowledge. Because how many years ago did you graduate? Also 10 years. It's an auspicious time, it's an auspicious number. So we're really grateful because your studio is in Delft, is that correct, in the Netherlands? So it's really great to hear a different perspective of running your own studio. So just a little bit about Elise's studio. So Zoet Mulder are a design agency for architecture, interior, urbanism and design. They blend these specialisms by carefully dealing with human scale, atmosphere, and sustainable materials. Paying attention to both the minor detail and the bigger picture, they create an atmosphere fitting the local characteristics. With a focus on sustainable resources, their broad material knowledge connects sustainability with scale and atmosphere. They explore these topics in their research projects and develop them into design tools. These tools are applied in practice for their architectural design projects in education, cultural interiors and housing. So without further ado, over to you, Elise. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay,
there we go.
cool. Hi. So who are we? Yeah, so Shelley already introduced me. I'm Elise Zoet Mulder, and she briefly introduced my practice. So I graduated 10 years ago, and since, I think in May, we are 5 years ago, we started our office, and now we are working already in a small, big team, I guess. So we do architecture, interior, urban plans, and product. So my background is interior architecture, and I started the office with my brother, and his background is in architecture, so it's a really nice combination. And we work from our office in Delft, so I don't know, so yeah, we connect skills, so I guess that's the interior and the architecture coming together, the atmosphere that covers it, and yeah, I think sustainable materials are really important, but I will get a little bit more into it when I will show you some projects. So yeah, 5 years already, so we build our first project, we also make stuff ourselves, because I mean, how can I design a massive building while I don't know how to stack bricks or anything? So I think that's important. We also do a lot of, I think participation with our clients. So this is with a school board, some people from a pub and some people from a gym. So it's always really fun. Because they have, I mean, we are in a design environment and you're used to design language, but if you are just working as a volunteer in a pub or you're teaching little children, you have such a different point of view of what design is and
how you talk about it. So that is something I also learned during these last 5 years. And we also explore a lot, like when we take our little quirky interests quite seriously. We, like for example, this lady over here, like Renée Guillistet, she's a French architect, and she designed really cool buildings in Paris. You should really visit. But I found out there was only literature about her in French and not in English or in Dutch. So I was like, well, that's a bit sad, is it? So I thought, oh, I will just do a little research about her. So it was fun. Yeah, and we do, yeah, of course, like stuff like this. Also in the Netherlands, like we teach about our design methodologies, like we are doing now with some of you in Stockport with the Beauty as Experience toolbox. And I am, yeah, like reflecting on what our profession should be as an interior architect. Like the BNE, it's like a RIBA, but then for interior architects in the Netherlands. So that's nice to be part of that. And I think that is really important for us. It has been to set up our practice, like collaborating, like with other designers, but also other, like for example, like these people you see in the picture. One of them is also a starting architect. And the other one, he has a massive office. And it's just really, you learn so much working together. And sometimes you meet, yeah, I will do a little example about that's actually one of the guys in the picture. So I think what is really important is your own weird quirks and take them seriously. And also what is important for you. Like for example, this is a church in the Netherlands, and I always came here with my granddad, and I only found out later it was like this architect that was really good, and I researched it a lot. And also during my MA, it popped in my head, like thinking about some design methodologies this guy had, and I made these models with ceramic, and then I just randomly met some people that were starting up a design brand, and they asked me if I could design this mug, and I used the design methodologies of that guy that designed that church. So then that monastery that the guy designed was like, oh, it's empty, let's do a big art expo. It's like, yeah, why not? I will participate, it's okay, I don't mind. And I was just like with these other artists, and I was like, I don't know, why am I even doing this? It's fun, but whatever. But at the same time, we just were finishing this building in a city somewhere in the south of the Netherlands where not a lot of people live. But then we met some guy, the guy who had a big office, and he actually lives in that town, and he drives by this building every day, and he was already thinking, oh, that's actually a pretty awesome building. And then he asked us to work with him, and now we are designing these buildings. So, I mean, I just wanted to say, like, just because I was like, oh, let's play with some ceramics and do some funny expo, I think, and just do it with passion, what you were also saying. And then, yeah, it's not a guarantee, but, you know, stuff will happen. So, a little bit about like how I arrived at even doing those buildings. Felt it was fun for you guys to see what I was doing. So this is actually the Unit X project that you guys are doing now. So it was quite funny, I thought, to show you guys, and doing some experimenting, and of course making my weird models that are not buildings, but it feeds into the practice. But you know, I think I was always quite optimistic and just trying a lot of things, like participating, collaborating. Like here I collaborated also with a friend of mine designing some furniture pieces, and then we collaborate with some graphic designer, and I don't know, I think when I look back at it, I think, oh, I just was trying a lot of different things. And in the end, oh yeah, and this is in Manchester. Yeah, I will just go through this. This is a collaboration I also did with a textile designer. She has a studio, I think, in Warrington. Mary Jones, she makes really nice knittings. Yeah, so I think all those individualities, the quirky things, feed into also my architectural practice. So maybe I'm going to show you, I have a lot of projects here, so I'm just going to be a bit quick, but maybe show some projects a little bit more, but I just want to show, like, you always see like cool pictures, cool renders, but then actually to get there it's really messy. You know, you have to make a lot of drawings, investigate the context. Like for example with this project, we arrived and it looked like that, and the guy was like, whoa, I think I need a new cabinet. I'm like, okay, I don't know where to start. So we just thought, okay, we will just make a whole new design for you because this is not possible. So again, messy sketches. I think we literally just presented these sketches and he was like, yeah, okay. And yeah, I think like this is the same. I've always think it's really funny. And yeah, what we also do is just always make lots of options. Like what he also said, like don't go with your first drawing, just investigate, how can you make it better? And we sometimes go back to the first drawing we made, so that's right. But then you can explain it better, like why that is the best idea if you don't explore other options. Yeah, and I think what is nice, for example, at this design, it's building, but we started actually at looking at what is in the underwater life in this city. Like these snails live there, they are pretty awesome looking. And we designed like some patterns and then create that into an architectural concept. So sometimes small things influence bigger things. You know, like sketch and then you make a fancy render, but you know, yeah, that's what people want. Oh yeah, and I think this one is also really funny because this is it's an identity project, and which I think also inspired a little bit the methodology some of you are using in the Stockport project, to think what is the identity of a place and how can you visualize this. So this is this place is called Sweet Lake, and it has a lake with I don't know, like these stripes. It's like a typical Dutch pattern. So we thought, let's make round and straighter shapes. I don't know how to say that. And also, again, lots of options. And again, yeah, we really like the proportion theory of this this monastery guy, so we used it again. It's really interesting if you like it. It's like a sort of golden ratio, but then in 3D. So, and the basis is Dom van Hans van der Laan. I don't know. It's really nice. Yeah, and we were going to use the tiles that they had in how am I for time? I'm okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good. That's okay. Okay, good. Yeah, so this, in this mug I also applied this ratio theory of Tom Hans van der Laan. And again, like before, we started to make lots of paper models, you know. And I think sometimes can also be very surprising, like we investigate the context a lot, like what is the place that we are working at, what is very typical of this environment, what kind of crafts are there and might be forgotten. So for example, this is, in this area they were doing a lot of these stoplappen. It's a sort of embroidery to men's clothes, but actually looks a lot like brick pattern. So we made it into a brick pattern. I think that's really nice to just have these little hints, because sometimes cities can be really smooth and out of place, and just want to find a way to connect. This was quite fun because my knowledge of mold making in the ceramic studio here, they taught me how to make different molds, really came into handy, because the client said, "Oh, but round is so expensive, you have to make so many molds." We were like, "Yeah, but we will just mirror this. It's actually, we just make one mold and we can make all the balconies." And we calculated it and it was right, so round, same price, yeah. And it looks so much nicer. And it's really fun because they are alternating, and then people, when I was there, like people are standing on their balconies and they're having chats, like because one is sticking out a little bit. So it was fun that it also had a social aspect to it. And recently we got a little bit more into school design, because that really brings together interior, because interior spaces, especially in schools, are super important. Like lots of times they are, you know, a box is made and then children come inside, and then it's not very inspiring, you know. It's just a place where you have to learn. So it's a really nice combination within our team that we are focusing on architecture and interior. And what is actually quite interesting with this one is also that we made it entirely out of wood. The structure, but also all the furniture and all the walls. But that meant we had to make quite a rigid grid, but I think it looks quite pleasing. So, and in the interiors also we applied a lot of wood. But it's like, for example, for this one, I think working with wood is it can help, like, because it's better for the CO2, but you have to be smart in engineering it. So you have to work closely together with people who have a lot of knowledge about construction, and acoustics can be a pain, but in the end, I think it also adds a lot of quality and atmosphere to a space. And this is also another school we're working on. It's really fun. We're going to put it on a hill, and the hill is going to be exactly the same height as the expected sea rise in 100 years. So the Netherlands is, you know, very low, below sea level. So. And the children can now use it as a playing element, the little hill. So for this school we looked at local architecture styles, and they have a lot of different shed shapes. And then for this design we gave all the different users of the building, they get a shed. And then we put it together. So one shed is the sport field, one of the sheds is the school, and one is the local pub, and then the middle one is their community area. So it's really fun. So this is now what I don't know, we're in between the design, so it's not finished yet, but we just make really quick SketchUp drawings. I will just go through this. This just shows like, sometimes you make quick drawings, sometimes you make collage. Yeah, so this is for a museum. It was quite in an industrial area, so we used a lot of rolled steel. And we made these curtains with different type of textiles, so you can look through them. Like they have meetings in this place, so then you can create a sort of, how do you say, different types of transparency between the spaces. And I think this one is also quite interesting approach in sustainability. Like this is an old water tower, and they had this was where the water was. It was pumped up from here, but they had to make a few holes in the space, and we calculated how many holes we had to make, and we used those concrete blocks that came out of it as elements in the design. So here the hole is made, and then we just literally just get the concrete out. There were some lids from, I don't know what they were, but and then we made a counter for the museum out of it. But we didn't make nice photos yet. So these will be the furniture pieces in the shop. And we will make it all out of materials that we harvested from the building itself. So that was quite fun to think about. And they have these really amazing textures on it, because there was like the water eating in the concrete. Oh yeah, and we made acoustic paneling for the museum as well, where they can put signing, and it has mycelium in it. It's how do you call it? Mushrooms, and it's also acoustic. Okay, I will just go quickly through this. This is just wood design, but we design it through using sensors. Yeah, we get sometimes a bit geeky and do a lot of research. Like some of you know, with the design methodology, beauty is experience, where we analyze existing qualities and using those to add new things. And this is another spatial strategy we made. Where we try to combine more like that we live together more with nature. So if you're planning a new neighborhood and you're going to let nature be part of it. So we're living all together. We're not just by ourselves. We are living here with the whole other things that live on this planet. This is one of the buildings, and I think what is really funny is about this. I was designing this building, and I really like gardening, and I thought, oh, I don't think I could live in this building in my own design, because how can I garden on a balcony? It's not possible. And it's like a soft transition between your house and outside. If you have a garden, it is part of your house, and you want to curate it in a way. And sometimes balconies can be just like windy. I don't know, sometimes they just make like a little plate with a glass balustrade around it, like you're a fish. I think that's really weird. So I found this picture of this lady there, and that she's on a balcony. And I was like, wow, that doesn't look like a balcony, it looks like a garden. It's really nice. And I rang the guy who made the photo, and I was in contact with this lady, and she made a whole list of plants that she has on her balcony and how she curates her balcony with like what kind of tools she uses. So we design now the balconies in a way that you can do this. So that's nice, I think. Because we were, like the woman I was talking to you guys about, the French lady, she designed this. And this is in the center of Paris. and it has a lot of concrete underneath it though, but it is like living in rural France with Paris views. It's amazing. Yeah, so this is what it looks like from the top. I mean, we should, like, and also interior and architecture and urbanism, they are really well integrated in these designs. It's super interesting. So I would love to design projects like this. So we try to learn from these. Like here you see the plants, they are just mad. Like the one color is one apartment. So I don't know, it's really, yeah, it is really nice. I visited lots of these apartments and I got a lot of tours from people living there. It's, I can really recommend going there. And people are really nice, they just invite you in. So I think just 3 things that I wanted to give you, what really helped me be where I am now, is first is serious play. I think I really like to have fun, but I'm also really serious about it. I mean, if I like something, I also want to investigate and know everything about it. So take your quirkiness serious. Like if you like very weird things, be serious about it. It can bring you to a place where you want to be. So I think that's really important. And yeah, that brings me to the next one, collaborate. You don't know anything, and like I know nothing. I feel like I know nothing all the time. I need other people to help me. So also the people you are with in your class, I think like you started your office with your classmate. I think, yeah, you cannot do it alone. And it's nicer together, really. And last one, openness. I think, yeah, just be honest. I think, yeah, I think that's really important. So, yeah, thank you.
So thank you both. I'm going to turn around so I can see you a little bit more.
We'll just do this, because then we can see each other a little bit better.
Firstly, it just makes me really proud to see what you guys have been up to, and to think that, you know, the art school and design school have played a small part in how, I guess, forming your view in the world and how you see yourselves as designers. So it's a real privilege and pleasure to hear you speak. So Fabs has given me some questions. I will probably deviate. But let's start. Let's start as we mean to go on. So how I define interiors is really about how people move around space. And, you know, we see all these really beautiful images that you've both put up there, but ultimately they're for people, you know, to do something in. So really just to start us off is to think about, you know, how do you think about the human dimension in the initial phases in life within the architectural spaces and in the interior? You've talked a little bit about that, Lise, yeah.
Yeah, so in our research, especially in when we designed the house, the Sense House, it was focused on the senses. We look at Edward Hall. He's an anthropologist. He wrote like the hidden dimension, and it gives a real sense of what kind of skills you have in a space. And when we have a client, we always try to figure out what kind of skill or feeling they want in a space, and what is it. Like sometimes a brief is very like, oh, you want so many toilets or so many tables, and you're like, okay, but what do you really want? I think that is always really important to try to figure out, like, what is the question behind the question.
Yeah. I think you both spoke quite a lot about what you like or what it would mean. So, you know, you couldn't live in that apartment because there wasn't a garden, you know, and Liam, you talked about kind of designing for the things that you and Ollie are really into. So, you know, putting yourself at the centre of that process, I guess, is an interesting one. So how do you convince your client to do what you want to do? Because they obviously have an agenda and they're paying your fee.
I think it comes down to a really nice document, a really good concept, like something that's thought out and makes sense. And a concept like I'm always aware because we get, you know, from being at uni, and I think that is, a little side note, the biggest thing that I took away from my studies at this on this course was conceptual thinking. And there's a fine balance between being like too over the top that the real world doesn't get it, that you some kind of very artsy, airy-fairy concept, which is fine if it makes sense in your head, but it's trying to translate that into a more wide world, real world sense. And I think that is our strongest feature as youth, is that conceptual thinking, and translating that into a nice, seriously, like a nice document that does communicate that graphically, and also you're sold enough on it that when you sit in front of a client that you understand exactly what you're trying to say. So I think it comes down to understanding what the concept is, but then pulling it back to making sure it's in an understandable graphical communication of it's delivered right person. Yeah. Yeah.
Say something about it. Yeah, I think that's really important, like how you explain your concept. But I think, it sometimes is also hard to come up with a concept at all. Like, how do you figure out what concept fits with this brief? Like what I told, we were trying to figure out the question behind the question, really analyzing the location and the people who are using it. I feel a bit like a shrink for space, you know, you're like trying to figure out what is in their head and how you're going to make that visually. But I mean, the client already came to us or selected us, so they know our aesthetic. So then you think, okay, I'm sure they must like something we made, so...
I think, yes, they've come to you for a reason, haven't they? I wonder, you talk about kind of that communication is really key, and that, for the client to have confidence in you and your ideas and your concepts, and I guess the rigour behind that. What would you say is the most effective tool for communicating that? So you've talked about the document. I know what you mean about the document. I spent many, many late nights putting together kind of... A good document. Yeah, a good document. So for our students who might not have prepped a document before, or a kind of a pack, what does that mean? What's in there? And is that the only way? What other tactics have you used to convince the client to kind of buy into this design?
Alcohol. No. What other tactics? I mean, I would love to say that we make as many nice, beautiful models as yourself and other design studios. Unfortunately, we don't do as much of that. But I think when we sit down with a client with a concept, I think, as I was professing to you before about Vectorworks, like how good it is, if you can use that properly, then life's complete. You don't need anything else. No, I love Vectorworks, and also I also really like Keynotes on Mac at the moment as well, and it's the same as PowerPoint. But what we're doing more as well is more like videos within our presentations that give a massive word being more of a feeling to that. I think that sells to the client much more than still images. But that's not to diss still images, but I just think it's just about curating your concept, maybe some sketch plans, nothing too massive. It completely depends on the project. Like Curb one that I showed earlier on, we showed in the first presentation with the client there because the concept wasn't necessarily anything too abstract. It was literally like, let's just do a curved wall, and we sketched that out as a little 3D view in Vectorworks. and then with some cool images, and you don't really, like, they loved that, and that was it. And that was pretty much, Curb. And that was it, designed.
Bish bash bosh.
Yeah, job done.
Nice.
I mean, Elise, you've touched upon this a little bit. So the process of getting things built, and you have as well, Liam, it's not easy. So let's not pretend that these things happen overnight. And it's a really complex process that we go through. It's also really, really hard to build buildings. Okay, and I think that's the real thing that's different from interiors and obviously an architect's to a product designer or a textile maker or whatever, because you need to involve a huge amount of people to kind of make this happen. Then when you start to kind of bring in other things, other factors which we know are more values driven around kind of sustainability and maybe social equity, who's that community that you're designing for? How do you kind of make a balance between, I mean, Liam, you've talked a lot about kind of the materials that you've made and you've used, and using local craftspeople, and similarly for you, Elise, and kind of drawing inspiration from the context around you. So whereabouts do those kind of two elements sit within your design process, considering it's so hard to build a building? So often in my own experiences is that, any sustainable materials, you're just like, I just need one that I can get hold of in time and on budget. So, where do you sit in that position, or are you something that you're consciously deciding, actually, we're going to try and be more responsive around this piece?
I'll go quick. I think first and foremost with the kind of like sustainable thing, like as I say, the big residential schemes that we've done, there's ESG, which stands for something with sustainable and then something else at the end of it, and governance, that's the other one, yeah. And that was a massive like hype on this building that we've just completed on Oldham Road, and we did everything we could to make sure that was as sustainable as possible, but also budgets and all that kind of stuff plays into that. But I think the other way of looking at sustainable and being sustainable is by designing things that aren't too trend-led, so making sure that we're using stuff that, sensible choices on certain finishes, and then also the design itself, making sure that it's not so subjective that in a year or two time it's kind of going to feel dated. So I think like from our perspective within the studio, our philosophy is to kind of aim for something that's timeless. Obviously that's quite hard to achieve, but that is where we take inspiration from, is projects that are standing the test of time, and how they do that is using beautiful materials and quite a architectural kind of palette. But that's what our philosophy is with it.
Yeah, I think that thinking about that longevity of what you're designing is really important, because I think especially in the schools like we are designing, I mean kids are going to play, they're going to write on the walls, and the walls need replacing. But I think for us, for each project, we think already when we are creating the concept, like what can we do that is really threaded into the concept. It's a bit silly, but we always think of 3 things that make a concept good. Can be anything, but we try to keep it all through the project, because there's gonna be always budget cuts. There's always gonna be a person that is halfway doubting your project, or wanna break it, like just not do it, or during the build somebody's gonna come, but can we just do it like this? And we just have these 3 things always that was like, okay, we're never, ever, ever, ever gonna step away from these 3 things, because these are essential. And we just, put them on repeat.
Can you give an example of those 3 things?
I don't know, let me think, what is a good example? I think for example, for the school I showed with the rigid wooden structure, we thought already really early in the process that we wanted to make it out of wood, and we just called a lot of experts, and they said, okay, it's cheaper to do a short a short span of wood, because it's cheaper because you use smaller beams. And we just really embedded that rhythm through the whole design of all the rooms, of where all the things were. So if they take it out, they just can't, because the whole building, can scrap. And we have the towers on the edges of the building, and we put in 2 of them, we put the flight stairs. So the volume really needs those towers, because otherwise it's just going to look like a block. And well, the question actually came, can't we just remove those towers? They're for nothing, right? But we're like, no, the flight stairs are in there, so the fire department is going to let you. So, no, so we always try to combine things. It's maybe a bit sneaky, but it really works.
I think it's a really clever thing to do, because I've actually written down here as you both were talking, how important is it to get paid? Very. But what's your bottom line? And I think what you're doing is building in your bottom line into the designs, so that the integrity of the design is not compromised, because that's something that happens through the demand and the process.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting that you start off, you build that into kind of your process. It's like, these are our bottom lines around this project. Liam, it doesn't look like you've had to kind of make too many compromises in your schemes, because they're very beautiful, very crafted, very detail orientated. So what's your bottom line?
Buying the contractors and beers, or befriending him, making sure you're on the side of the contractor. The contractor always do little jobs on the side for you behind the main contractor. Well, I don't know. Again, well, I do. What I'd put that down to from our side is that, again, the technical side that the stage 4 pack that we do is like, there's no stone unturned. And I think when we first entered into the industry and were competing against other design practices, we were kind of seeing what they were going to tender with, and some of them were like just a SketchUp model, and contractors were pricing on that, and we were like, well, that could be any kind of material or any detailing on that. So we literally we don't do projects like up to like stage 3. I know some design studios will do like stage 3 and then hand it over, or that's wrong to say, because we will work with architects that will take on the stage 4, but we'll police that and work with them on that. But it's so important that we're part of that stage 4, because when we enter into a project, obviously the monetary side, you're running a business, but more importantly, like, we're entering that project because we know what our end goal is with it, what we want to achieve out of it, and therefore, like, we want to police it the whole way through. So, like, being on site and that stage 4 pack, like, technical details being like perfect and not giving anyone kind of scope to reinterpret them.
That's it, yeah. So again, building it into the process so the design is locked in.
Yeah.
And that's how I think how you build confidence as well, from the client's perspective.
Yeah, I think that's another big thing we tell clients is, like, from the CGI that you might see, or the model, or the coloured elevations, like, that is what you will get from us. It's not like you'll end up with some version of that, because that is what we're drawing up. That is, and like, we nail our kind of colours to the mast with that in front of a client, and then we just make sure we do it on site and do whatever we need to do to make it happen. And that's where, like, we might show a mirrored round table or a purple table and present that at concept, and then be like, oh, how do we actually do that? But then it's about, and a great thing about when we moved into this building at MMU was we were mixing with product designers and fashion and all this and that, and I think that's stayed with us now as a studio. So we were saying about Phil Proctor before, another student of Fabricio's. He now, like, we collaborate with him on loads of cool projects, and yeah, we always make sure we go that extra mile to find the right person to do those little bespoke things, so that we do achieve them, and it's not a contractor bashing together a big purple table, for instance.
Ooh, we don't want that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you've both spoken quite a lot about, you know, your network and your collaboration. And I think it's really interesting that you both work in a kind of a partnership, you with your brother and, you know, you with a good friend. So really, you know, what advice would you have for the students in the room about how you set up your own business, but also how you build your network? I mean, Elise, I thought it was so wonderful to go, oh, well, I just kind of thought I would drop into that chapel and do an exhibition. And then this guy said, oh, I've got it here. I just randomly met some people and we did something. And I just called this lady and asked her what was in her balcony. So, and that's brilliant because it's kind of, you know, if you don't ask, you don't get. So how would you say that, you know, is that mindset has enabled you to build your network and enabled you to collaborate? Or is it something that you find easy or a challenge? You know, what advice would you give to help build a network?
Go for it.
Yeah. I just, it just sounds like I'm a really outgoing person, but but I feel a lot of the time really awkward when I have to meet new people. So, but I don't know, I don't know how it happened. Like sometimes when I just feel really passionate about it, I just think, oh, I will just do it. But yeah. Then
It's your core self-belief, and I think probably...
I mean, and then I still feel insecure about it. Of course, it's not that I feel like, yeah, I'm gonna get lots of projects. I'm just doing it because I think it's fun and I'm not expecting anything. But yeah, but also I research a lot about where our things are going to happen, like going to openings, because I just find it fun, just to go to museums and see what's happening, or yeah, we are actually sometimes really cheeky. We just see, oh, municipality, oh, the school is run down and they have to do some refreshments, and we just call them. Yeah, we're like, hi, I'm Elisa, I design schools. So, and it sounds really corny and cringe, but it really works. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so.
What would you say, Liam?
Yeah.
Well, like, as you know, Ollie's a much more kind of outgoing, forward person, a little bit more chilled than he is. So whenever we meet clients, Ollie would be straight in for a hug, and then I'd follow with, well, I always used to say, let me go first, because I'd just shake the hand, and Ollie would then follow with the hug, so then I didn't have to hug. So it does help when you've got someone who is very outgoing, sociable, and yeah, so he's like, yeah, and then, yeah, so we've got a nice balance between us. So if the client doesn't like him, then hopefully likes me and vice versa. So that's a good dynamic to have. And I think really in terms of, like, got to put yourself out there. So, I mean, we, again, just networking and doing stuff like at the start of this year, me and Ollie went to Dubai because there was a person we knew there, and we had been there a couple of times, and we were like, really want to work there. So we went over for the week and just literally went and met a lot of crazy people, which was really good because there's opportunities there with some people. But it is just a case of, and you know, that's not that we don't always do that. We've just, last year we kind of sat in the office designing stuff, and then this year we decided we were going to do it a bit different. And previous years we've been outgoing and met different people, and I think the thing is to just go to different places, go and see different cities, and yeah, just try and a network's so big, like so important. Like, we still have connections with some of the people that we went to university with here, who are based all over, you know. So I think that's kind of the key thing. And then yeah, being personable, being your true self with people as well. I think as well, like, especially coming from Manchester, how that's translated going everywhere else, that sense of humour and not taking yourself too seriously, people actually really like that, because sometimes, you know, designers, architects can come across very pretentious, and I think people like it when they can have a bit of a laugh, and especially the more kind of corporate people, they can have a laugh and you can kind of just relax them a little bit, so that kind of bodes well, I think. Yeah.
I think that's really good advice. So, you know, this doesn't land in your plate. You know, it just doesn't. You just don't kind of sit there and these kind of projects just, you know, swing by. We've got a good expression in Ireland is that you make your own luck, and that you're out there kind of pushing for it. But I think kind of what you're both describing is your values around design. You know, what you hold true to you, and what gives you your drive and your passion. Which I think is really important, because if you don't have the drive and the passion, it's a kind of lonely place, isn't it? So you've got your drive in it yourself, and that's what's enabling your success. So, are we okay for time, perhaps?
We can go to questions.
Okay, so I've just got 2 questions left. So, you've both given us a little bit of advice already around, you know, advice for everybody in the room. I'm gonna ask you a question. What is the hardest lesson that you have learned that has been the most valuable lesson? And that's whenever you're running your own studio. I can think of mine, but I want to hear you.
Lesson.
Yeah, what was that kind of like? That was a hard lesson. Should I give you my example?
Yeah, please.
Measure twice, cut once. So I designed a bar. It was one of the first projects that I ever did. And I thought I'd measured the chairs properly, but when I got there, it was like they were from Lilliput.
Yeah.
And that's an expensive lesson to learn, particularly whenever you're, you know, dealing with money and a client's money and things like that. So, is that just me?
No, I mean, I'm trying to think. There's probably lots. Yeah, with me and Ola, there's probably lots. But similarly, as I said on the slideshow, making sure that tables will fit through doors is probably a similar one to that. But other lessons, I don't know. Do you have one?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I think I also had one time I designed something that didn't fit through the door, but then I had to take it apart and then put it back together.
So we clearly all got a problem with scale.
Well,
Yeah, measuring.
or model scales sometimes also went wrong. No, but I think in the beginning I was always really doubting, like, oh, I don't know anything, they're gonna think I am just a student who graduated. Well, of course I was. And people would think I was the intern, and it would really annoy me. But I think I learned to, that is actually okay if you don't know, and that if you ask, you can better ask more questions than none. And I think in the beginning I sometimes didn't ask a question because I thought, oh, they're gonna think I'm stupid or something. But then it's actually okay. Yeah, I know it's a bit silly, but
Yeah, I think that's kind of critical. I think in our line of work, it's okay to make mistakes as long as you know how to fix them. Was probably something else that I learned as well. So I've designed a table that I can't get through the door, but I know how to dismantle it and put it back together again.
yeah.
So I think kind of the moral of that is that you're always thinking as a designer, no matter what, that kind of entrepreneurial and left of field way of thinking and problem solving all the time. So no, thank you very much for that. So a little bit of time for questions from the floor. If anybody has any questions.
I've got a couple of questions. How do you value your work, and how important is it to have like a partnership business in terms of 2 people working?
You mean with value?
When you say value as in
Quoting? Or
how do you price?
How do you price? Yeah.
God, that's really. I still think it's really difficult, but sometimes we just use like that you know the building budget, and then it's a certain percentage of that building budget. or we just make a planning and then calculate all the hours. Yeah, that's really annoying thing to do. But I also learned that you should not undervalue yourself, because everything always takes way more time than you think. Like, I think when I was a student, I was always thinking, oh yeah, I can do so many things in a day. Well, you can't. And that's overestimating yourself. It sometimes sticks. But yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Liam,
Yeah.
what about you guys?
Yeah, I think undervaluing, that's probably on the back of your last question, that's probably a good point, is undervaluing a project and also taking on the wrong kind of projects. I think that's a massive one that I think we've learned now, kind of thing. But in terms of valuing a project, we kind of just go by time based on what other projects, and you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. You've got to win more than lose, obviously, but I think, yeah, you get a feeling for how long a project's going to take, and then it's just kind of like, yeah, how many weeks will that work, and just kind of work on that basis, know your value, which I think's kind of like a bit of it's a good thing to do, know. But like, obviously people say always make sure you know your value, which is great, but also sometimes when we first started Youth, we also knew that our value was going to be undercutting people, and then you build yourself up. So like, it's a fine balance between all of that. Don't you go, oh, I'm a designer, you know, I'm going to do it for this price. I think you've got that business mind with the design mind's the fine balance.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, you know, how did you know how to price yourself? I think that's quite a tricky one that students often think about, you know, is what am I worth? You know, we all want to earn 100 grand, but who's going to pay for that? And so how do you know where to pitch it at? So did you leverage your network? Did you have a mentor that you could speak to? There's kind of, you know, REBA will issue guidelines, but we kind of sit outside of those guidelines. So
yeah, well, I mean, as I was saying for Britsteel before, the first project that we got with Youth was Kanana's mum in Saudi.
I forgot about that.
So that we just charged them minority salary for a year, and that set us up. And then after that, that's us now. But so that is a bit of a weird one. But then after that, we did like burger restaurants, and even now we'll do like what we call passion projects. So those are projects that aren't going to necessarily like earn us a load of money or whatever, but they look great for the portfolio. But like at the kind of graduate kind of stage or earlier days, you just need to be like, what number would I be happy with if I have to sit up until 2 a.m. drawing this up? You know what I mean? So like, that's literally what I'd say is, if you're going to do it for £500, the likelihood of having the motivation to get up, you know, during the night to draw something, you're not going to do it. So make sure it's like a number that you're comfortable with, and you go, right, I've made a deal, and I'm going to do all the hours I need to get it right. And then slowly you'll get a better and better feel for where you sit.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, and I think it takes a while to find that out, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's all part of that learning curve.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, even now and then, depending on different clients, different places, it's all, yeah, trying to figure it out.
Okay. Thank you.
How important is like a 50-50 partnership to you?
Not in my case, not that important. No, I'm joking. It's massively important because next time Ollie can do this. No, massively important because we both motivate each other. Motivate each other. We compete with each other. We sense each other's vibes. So one will obviously be in a good spirit and drag the other one up, or so vice versa. So it would be incredibly. He's been away skiing this week, so I am missing him. This is recorded, isn't it?
But so 50-50, like just if you, the question is
with
like,
your brother, like how.
Oh, how important! Yeah, it is really nice. I think we really. I mean, he's my brother, so I know him very well. So sometimes when we are designing something, we can just, like our team is there as well, we just say a few words and we're like, yeah, this, I don't know, and it's like, blah, 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 and they just don't understand, so it's a bit weird, sorry for them. But it's just really nice, it makes you feel good, and you can, like when you're doing a presentation, I think we're also both quite different. So then, yeah, you can really, help each other out. I really don't imagine working by myself. I just can't imagine it. I think I just can't do it. I think I would just not be motivated. I think it's just other people really motivate work. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, we've got-
Yeah, so when you left university and you first started your own studio, do you have any like part-time jobs or anything at the time to like get it funded? So instead of just jumping straight in, getting your own studio and setting off.
You mean like apply for funding?
No, did you
So how
like
do
any
so
part-time jobs?
It's a big financial risk just to set up on your own. So how do you fund yourself in that process of setting up, or do you just eat beans and accept it?
Well, I think when I graduated, I also had, afterwards I had some job at a hospitality center, you know, like making coffee. And I saved money. And I think a lot of other people, they went on a big world trip to Southeast Asia, but I just spent all my money and went with all my stuff to Milan, which was nice. There was pizza, but I mean, you're taking some financial risks in that way, I guess, and it doesn't happen overnight. And I applied for funding and also like some master classes for recently graduated people, and then you help each other out. You get like, so this is in the Netherlands. You get some sponsors helping you, getting like tiny projects to, you know, start a little bit. So I think those things are really important. And and you sometimes are awake all night working, which is sleepy, but it's worth it. I think now I feel like I can chill a little bit more, which is nice. But in the beginning, I really, I think I really powered through it. Yeah.
What about you, Liam?
Well, I think first and foremost, I wouldn't, obviously, I come out of university, if I was in your shoes now, whilst I was at university actually, I worked for a company in Manchester, and so again, when everyone was having some holidays and Easter breaks and so on, I was working at this company, not earning any money off of them. I was working in a pub on the side for money. But I went there, and because I wanted to just become as good as I could and beat Ollie on the course mainly. But yeah, so like I think we dispute that, but I think I did. Thanks, Shelley. No, so I think you need to have your work ethic. Go and get experience and commit to that, and the opportunity will come at the right time. Like, we were fortunate, and I think it's like you say, you know, you make your own luck and good timing and good network. So I wouldn't necessarily say like set out from uni thinking, right, I'm going to start my own company as soon as I leave uni. I mean, go for it by all means. But what I would suggest is go learn somewhere, really kind of learn the craft, spend time, and take that, like, just absolutely soak up everything that you gain from that in terms of using that network that you get introduced to. And the time when it's right, you'll know when it's right, because you'll get someone will come and say, can you design me a burger restaurant? Can you design me this? And then you go, right, okay, do you know what? I'll do this after work, on my free time. I'll do this, and then hopefully by that point you might do your own burger restaurant with a client, and you go, right, okay, I've done one, and you get confident, and then and you build it up like that. So I wouldn't say like go, you know, wake up one morning and go, right, sack my job off yesterday, I'm going to start a business today. It just doesn't work like that, and yeah.
Yeah, that's really good advice. What programme are you on at the moment?
Graphic design at the moment.
Okay, what year are you in?
Second year.
Second year. Who's
Yeah.
your tutor?
Oh, God.
Pick
Good
one.
question.
Pick your favourite.
I mean,
They're not here.
With Andy at the moment. I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
Andy. Okay. So you pester Andy.
Hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little story about Liam. Liam used to pester me on a daily basis, a weekly basis, about work placement and work experience. And so it was really clear when he was a student that this is what he was going to do. And I'll be really honest. We were like, you know, he needs to get a good 10 years under his belt, and then he can set up a business. But actually, it's that drive that pushes you to do it. And I mean, it's really great to hear, you know, both of you speak about the network that's here in the art school. Is that it's so valuable, and you can't underestimate how valuable that is. But also leverage your tutors, pester Andy, you know, and say, Andy, who's your mates? You know, who can get me a work placement? I remember Liam pestered us so much that we got him a work placement with Field and Cleve Bradley, who built this building. Because these guys moved into it whenever it just opened 10 years ago. So it's got to be in your core. If this is what you want to do, you have the ambition to do it, and you make it happen, because it's not going to land in your plate. You know, it's just not going to land in your lap unless you make it happen. But that's, I think, the value of being in somewhere like this, is that you can really leverage those opportunities. So, yeah, you've my permission to pester Andy.
Cheers.
Nice.
Okay. Any other? Yeah, absolutely, if we've got time.
I've got a couple of questions actually. The first question being, so the both of you are in partnership with a friend and your brother, and both those relations are like extremely important in your personal life. So how do you manage to bridge the gap between, you know, just business and then, you know, being in your personal life?
Well, yeah. So with me and Ollie, we're probably very close best mates kind of thing. But we also, I mean, in the earlier days when he wasn't married and we weren't kind of as mature as what we are now, we both had very different kind of social circles. So as I say, like Ollie would go out clubbing, I'd go to a pub, so we were kind of different in that way. So we both have always had this kind of natural understanding where we can, and it's not by any means like official or anything, but we just don't like to do the same stuff at the weekend, so we just don't hang out. But it is important. But then at the same time, like, you know, I've spent a week with him away, like shared beds with him and all sorts of stuff. And but you've always just got to, and we have lots of fights. No, we don't have lots of fights. When we have a fight, he's very good. He's really good at kind of just letting it go. But I feel like it's just a relationship that, again, I met him here, and it wasn't like we thought this is what we're going to do. It just kind of naturally happened, and we have got a really close relationship. To like, I've got a girlfriend, he's got a wife, but we both have got that same kind of relationship as you do, like in those kind of relationships where you can read each other's vibe and you can kind of go like, let's have a bit, you know, you go and do your weekend and so on. So I think it is important to have that balance. And but again, like, we didn't go looking for as partners to start up a company with. We just bumped into, you know, we met here on the course, and then you might meet the person you potentially would start a company with on this course, or you might meet them in 10 years' time at another job. So I wouldn't, like, if you do want to do that, don't like get like weird and needy to everyone on the course.
Yeah. So I work with my brother. So lots of people always ask me, "Oh, you're working with your brother? I could never do that." And then me and my brother always say, "Yeah, it's awful." We have the same humor, I think. But yeah, it is really nice because I mean, I know him through and through. We can be really mean with each other, but then at the end of the day, it's fine. And I think with our job, you sometimes have to be really strict and honest. And yeah, I feel that we can do that. And yeah, of course, I see him also in the weekends, but I don't know, it's fun. So, yeah, I quite like him, yeah, he's a fun brother.
So I guess the secret really is that, you know, both studios would not be successful if you didn't have good working relationships, and that's part of the dynamic.
Yeah, but we also have, of course, other people who work with us, and it is just, we need them, you know, we do it together, so, yeah, and they're all different people, everybody has different qualities, and together you get the perspective on the design you need. And the multiple perspectives, I think, really make it better. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just do one last one on the phone here.
Oh.
Is it to you, Jenny, for the last question?
I'll make it a quick one. I'll get that right. I wanted to ask a little bit about the kind of material aspects of your practices. So Liam, you talked about the kind of giving the instructions of the really specific ways that things should be put together and assembled, and kind of controlling that process. And Elise, there was lots that came through in yours in terms of drawing on textile practices and the mould making and how they can. And I was curious just if you could both expand on that a little bit in terms of, do you test things out? Do you get your hands dirty with the materials? Is that bit important, or is it about working with other people and drawing on their skills?
Yeah, I think we don't get our hands dirty as much as we like. I think when you are doing smaller projects, they can be more hands-on. So, but I think we do have a lot of control over what material we are actually going to use. So we make always really elaborate, detailed lists. It is really boring, it's in Excel, but it's super important, writing down the qualities. And we do stuff like, we're designing a brick building, and then I'm going to the brick factory, and I'm going to ask these guys, okay, where does your clay come from? What is the temperature you bake it with? How long does it go in the oven? And yeah, they use gas. So then I found out, oh, this color brick is actually, the clay is from just up north in the Netherlands, and you have to bake it less long than the other brick. And I'm like, okay, cool, we'll take that one. So I think in our way of working, you have to make little choices all the time, and we always analyze those little choices and try. I think you cannot always use the most sustainable material you want. You cannot make everything out of mushrooms or wood. You also need other materials, and we always evaluate, okay, within the choice I have, how can I make the better choice? And I think it's an easy way of working. It really helped us. I hope that answers your question a bit.
I think as well, that what you started with obviously is time. Like there's a lot of, especially with Instagram, you look at all these designers and they're playing with, you know, earth, rammed earth, and you go, that makes a great Instagram post, but like, where can we specify that? And also we haven't got the time to go and actually ram the earth. So like, but we source the samples, like we'll get samples into the office, tons of samples. We've moved studios so that we can have more samples in the studio to improve that tactility design. But ultimately kind of goes back around to working with really great craftspersons, going to, like for instance, again, going to Curb. I mean, there's loads of different versions, but going back down to Curb, the Jesmonite table, and there's a weird kind of organic, elliptical kind of shape. And there was a company in Leeds that made ornate mouldings for old like grade listed buildings, but they worked with Jesmonite. So then we gave them the drawing, and then they sent us samples. We proved those samples, and then went to the workshop. And then there's literally like this, just like plaster everywhere. It was really cool. But and there's this guy forming the whole table with like all these studs. It was amazing to see. But essentially, you don't really get your hands dirty, but it's good to go and learn off of those people about the capabilities, what you can do, how you would achieve those things, have the conversations, and again, having those technical drawings that you can really convey your idea and say, we need it to be this thick because we need to do this, and so on. So, unfortunately, I guess you don't have not enough time, but it's also finding the right people to work with, and then making sure that you're providing them with the best amount of information, and then also going and seeing them and learning from them, I guess, is a kind of like quick summary to that would be.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
Agreed.
you very much. I think also, I think what you've both illustrated as well is using those kind of craftspeople and knowledge within the region of where you're working. So I think so that you're kind of
that's
using.
probably like sustainable.
Yeah.
We just don't sell it as that, but I guess
But
we
you
will from now.
You will from now on. Every day's a school day.
Yeah.
Okay. So that concludes our questions. Just a huge thank you from us to Liam and Elise for joining us this evening, and for sharing your story 10 years after graduating. So thank you very much.